Welcome to the Blonde Bombshell podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Dr. Stacey Zlotnick, clinical psychologist, author, and relationship expert.
And I am Fenyoe, licensed clinical mental health therapist, best-selling author, transformational mindset coach, and professional speaker.
We believe a bombshell is a person who experiences struggles and is still able to find the courage and confidence to step into their greatness. They unapologetically own who they are and boldly go after the life they've always dreamed of.
We know that we all have a bombshell inside of us, and our passion and purpose for this podcast is to empower you to discover your inner bombshell. Hey, bombshell, welcome to today's episode. We are talking to energetic and so inspiring Juliet Herman. And we are excited to share the episode with you. But of course, I always like to hear what my co-host Stacey has to say about the interview.
I love that you use the term energetic because even though we weren't in the same room, we were connected by a computer screen and microphone, you could not help but feel her energy burst through every sort of screen and microphone between us. She is this like beating heart that just drives her in everything that she does, from her words to her actions to how she does client work. It's very tangible and palpable when you talk to her, and I cannot wait for our listeners to feel that energy from her.
Seriously, like, these are the type of interviews where we could just talk to them forever, and Juliet did not disappoint. So let's get right to it. But before we do, let's share a little bit about who Juliet is. Juliet Herman earned an MBA from New York University. She has 15 years of international experience supporting business strategically through analysis, branding, partnership development, marketing, sales, client relations, new product development, market expansion, research, and innovation. She's the Chief Change Agent and Chief Executive Officer of 3E's Impactful Transformations. Now, you're going to have to listen to the interview to know what the 3E's are. She maximizes visibility and profitability through brand development, positioning, and brand revitalization. She also creates strategic organizational changes that enable businesses to achieve ambitious goals. She also enables companies to maximize its human, social, and business capital, and creates a navigation system to facilitate business leaders to enhance their company culture through more productive and positive habits. Thank you so much, Juliet, for being on the show today. We are so excited to have you. Hey, Juliet, welcome to the podcast. We're so excited that you're here today.
Thanks, Megan. It's great to be here.
Welcome.
Hi, Stacey.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
So we always love to ask our guests right before we dive into all the good stuff. Juliet, what makes you a bombshell?
Definitely my energy. I think in 1 second, anyone could see that I'm energetic. And someone told me the other day, do you ever control entertainment? I said, I'm halfway right now. So someone once compared me. He said I was naturally caffeinated, that I replaced coffee, and I take that as a tremendous compliment. So I know in the morning sometimes I need to be a little less me, but I'm always me, a little less energetic, but I'm always there.
I love it.
I love it.
And I love how you just Stacey, you probably noticed it too. Like, she just answered it right away. Like, she was like, this is what makes me a bombshell.
This pop of energy that comes off of you, and you can see it and you can feel it. So you definitely are coffee or caffeine in a person form.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I actually have been working with a company. I just started working with them actually, who makes comic books, and everyone is a superhero. It's really cool, and they asked me to come up with my origin story and what my superpower would be. And I said, oh, okay, so I am Electra, as in electricity, the energizing strategist. And my superpower is that I throw lightning bolts at people to infuse them with energy and inspiration such that they can innovate and be the best version of themselves.
I love that, because I was on a podcast like a year ago, and it was focused on your superpower. And then I also did an online summit for this women's group, and it was called She Power.
Oh, wow.
And I asked them, my superhero is Shira. Now, Stacey, I don't know if you're going to remember Shira. You're a little bit younger. Do you know Shira?
I remember She-Ra and He-Man and Great Castle Grayskull. I know it all. Yeah.
Stacey, what is your superhero?
Oh my goodness, that is such a good question.
I would totally say like Elsa.
Oh,
I love that because I think one of the things that I love about her is she's like naturally empathic, and I really think that one of my superhero strengths is my ability to empathize and feel what other people feel, and so I take that wholeheartedly with a compliment, and I have the blonde hair and the braid to aesthetically go with it. So thank you for the compliment.
I love that. Wait, can we talk about empathic ability? Because that is something that I feel very strongly about. So I know that my whole life, I can feel everything that people are feeling. And I told this story the other day about how I saw someone and I felt like she needed to just release. And so I asked her, may I hug you? And then she cried on my shoulder. And she didn't have tears in her eyes. It's just that I felt that she needed some comfort. And for me, one of my biggest superpowers is my hugging. I love hugging people. Isn't it great?
That is Stacey to a T.
Is it really? Oh, we have to meet, Stacey.
Yes, I feel some great hugs in our future.
Yes.
And what I struggle with, and Stacey, I don't know if you struggle with this because you are such a hugger, but I know like when I'm with my patients, because, you know, Stacey and I were mental health therapists. So I know when I'm with my patients, there's so many times where we get done with a session and I'm like, can I hug you? And you have to be very, very careful with that, you know, as the therapeutic boundaries. But Stacey, because you're such a hugger, do you ever struggle with that?
I think that's such a great question. And interestingly, clinically, no, but I'm partly psychodynamically trained. So there's like a stoic approach to partly of how I do therapy. So I can really utilize be a blank slate for clients to read them and interpret them. But I do hug them with my words, if that makes sense. Yes. I'm very strength-based and empowered-based. So a lot of times I'll use my words to give them that sense of acceptance and caring and connection. And then I'll even acknowledge when a client's vulnerable with me, that it makes me feel closer to them and understand them as a human. And so it kind of verbalizes it. But outside the clinical room, I want to take and hug all the stray dogs and cats and bring them home. And I hug my friends, and I'm a very affectionate person. So yes, that's I think we hugged when I first met you. A
couple days later, not we weren't oh, hey, it's really nice to meet you, let's hug. We were kind of
wait, no, so this was because sometimes when someone hugs me, you know the expression, you had me at hello?
Yeah.
So I'm you had me at hug. I mean, I really am. So unfortunately, if someone hugs me, the business persona just drops off. I just can't retain it. So I was with a colleague. We had just met for the first time, but we've talked on the phone a ton. And we had such a good meeting. It was so wonderful. It was literally supposed to be just a coffee, 1 hour meeting. It turned into 6 hours. And such that it was so wonderful. He said, you know what? I'm going to Radio City with my family, because he was in from out of town. He said, why don't you come with us? I said, oh, I don't want to oppose. He said, no, please do come. And so I went with him and his family. And literally, it was so incredible that I met 11 people, and every single one of them hugged me. And then so I then accidentally hugged him. But it didn't matter because we all got along so well. So I understand the hugging bit. But I would encourage people, as long as you ask someone's permission and they don't feel uncomfortable, meaning there's some people, as you said, you're in a clinical relationship, it's a little bit different. If you ask them and you can sense that they could handle being candid with you, then I think there's nothing wrong with it. Because my doctor last month, I told him how his bedside manner was the best I'd ever seen. He should teach courses in it. And I told him lots of flattering things about him because I really feel that way about him. And literally, he didn't ask, which was fine. Our chemistry, we've known each other for years. He literally reached, he said, "May I hug you?" And we just had this really lovely hug. But again, I was very comfortable with it. I don't think everyone would be, but there's nothing wrong with it if you ask someone.
I love that we're kind of broaching this topic, and I'm wondering, you had brought up the notion of empathic leadership and being kind of empathic naturally in your own world. And I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind speaking to what is empathic leadership and kind of how do you touch on it or develop that skill in your business?
So it's interesting because I remember when I was younger, when I was first starting out in business, I've always been very heartfelt, and I thought, no, in business, I have to hide that part of me, that I was still nice, but there was a limit. You know, I didn't want to show certain emotions. You know, number one, as a woman, which I think we can all relate to, I think it's something that we are always held to a higher standard than men, unfortunately, when it comes to allowing certain emotions or certain parts of us to show. So I really had a very, very strong delineation between what I would allow to show at work. But empathic leadership to me means, you know, you see someone and you can sense that they're not understanding, and perhaps they're uncomfortable asking you, because people at work are actually just in life in general, but are very afraid of feeling foolish, especially in front of their peers, their colleagues, whoever it may be. So it's really knowing when I could take someone aside and say, you know what, if you have anything to tell me, please let me know, and don't be afraid to tell me something. And sometimes I sense that they're still uncomfortable, and so I'll reveal something about myself. And I think that allows them to be themselves and to just really release some emotions in front of me. So for instance, I've had people where, again, I'm really good at sensing when someone needs to cry, but they don't want to admit it or even let the tears show in their eyes. And so I said, you know what, if you feel like crying, that's okay too. And it's, for me, it's allowing, a lot of people say, don't bring anything personal to work. I think we're human beings. That's impossible. I mean, it's truly impossible to not, you know, you just had a big fight with your partner, or, you know, something went wrong, you're having financial difficulty, whatever it is, and we're human, and we all have the full range of emotions. And so to me, let it show. And sometimes if it's too much, I'll take someone aside and I'll say, you know what, I know you're having a bit of a rough time. Would you rather take the rest of the day off, or would you rather work from home tomorrow? You know, it's a way that we need to treat people as humans, because I think at the end of the day, everyone wants to be treated with respect, but more importantly, everyone wants to be seen, heard, and understood. And they may not ask that, but they may not ask for or articulate it in such a manner, but we need to be, just understand that they need some help. And the way that we can help them is by being empathic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple things that I'm hearing is that, one, you're really recognizing and honoring your own and other people's emotions and the humanity behind that when people have emotions, right? If you see a coworker that's struggling, you say, hey, I'm noticing this is going on. Do you need to take the day off? Do you want to talk about it, right? You like give them, you recognize and you respect that, and you give them that option to talk about it. And I also really love what you said. Everybody wants to be seen, heard, and understood. I think talk about role modeling that and wanting that, embodying that as a leader and then wanting that in a leader is, I think, so huge and such a powerful approach to relationships.
I think because at the end of the day that we forget that, whether it's, again, in business and life, I think as you know, as the years go by, you realize that the best thing you can do is be yourself in all places, because it is so hard to remember, wait, I'm at work, this is my work persona, and oh, now I'm out for drinks with people at work. Do I show them this? Do I not show them this? So to me, the best thing that you can do is just be yourself at all times. Now, granted, at work, as I said, I'm very energetic. I know that. So at work, there are time and place for me to be full energy, and there's a time and place for me to be halfway. So, we have to recognize that some of those traits that we have, we may need to exhibit them at other times that it may be more appropriate than others. But again, just be yourself. That is the best advice I can give to anyone, is be yourself, and who you are is good enough. I mean, to what this beautiful movement that Megan's doing. I mean, we really are enough. And the only way to realize that is to be ourselves. And we all have flaws. I call it being fabulously flawed. So just embrace your fabulous flaws. I mean, embrace them. And when there are some flaws that may rub someone the wrong way or may not be appropriate to show at certain times, if someone tells you and they're telling you in a caring manner, not to hurt you or not to steal your energy or make you feel bad, then, really listen to what they said and hear it and think about it. Because sometimes there are coaching moments that people are doing when we don't even expect it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I love that you also kind of came into this nice topic. You said coaching moment. And I'm wondering, Julie, if you could speak to a little bit to what you do and how you coach people out there in the world to be their best selves and leader selves.
Sure. So I created a framework, a strategy, if you will, called the 3 E's, which is embrace, engage, evolve. And what that means is embrace means to understand, really do a deep dive and define what the problem is, because quite often we figure out what the symptoms are. And we have absolutely no idea what the actual problem is. So we keep trying to resolve the symptoms, but we never do. Because you're just you're always resolving the symptoms and never the problem. So you have to really get to the root cause. And this applies to both work as well as in life. The framework is for both. And then once you really know what the problem is, you've defined it, you need to accept it. Accept that you have this problem and figure out, well, why do I have this problem? Do I have this problem based on a bias for what society deems I should feel or think or act in a certain way? And then you could come up with strategies, and that's where you get to engagement, is you take strategies, you take a roadmap, and you start acting upon it. And depending upon what it is, if it's a really huge problem, sometimes you just need to start with those small little baby steps. And collectively, all of those baby steps lead to progress. So you can't really judge it based on like 1 or 2 steps. You need to judge it as a continuum, and as you're moving along, and keep evaluating it as you go along. And then once you do all of that, eventually you will evolve, which means you've resolved the issue and then you move along. But the way I design it, it's a circle, because you go from embrace, engage to evolve, and then you repeat. So it's really, I think everyone should just be an entrepreneur in their behavior, whether they're in a big corporation or a small corporation or in life. I mean, the way that we learn, everything is circuitous. I mean, everything is a circle, everything. And so it's continuum. And you just keep going. And what's happening is every time you achieve something, you reach a goal, you move to the next step. And then you keep walking up that mountain, if you will, little by little. And so that's what I do.
We're all similar creatures in our line of profession, because it sounds very similar to the therapeutic process. I don't know. What do you think, Megan?
I totally agree with that. I think it's so much, now that I've been immersed into this, empathic coaching world, it's so much up my alley, even being like a licensed mental health therapist. And yeah, definitely with like the movement and everything else that we see as entrepreneurs, I think it coincides so well.
Yeah,
absolutely. But can I bring this up again, if you don't mind? No one can see this, but I'm showing you guys again. I love this so much. And I want to just talk about a friend of mine. She writes on her mirror, I am enough. And she has children. And she does it in lipstick, so she has to reapply it every few days. But I love just the concept of being enough, even at work and what you do. Because a lot of us, and I'll admit that this is one of my things that I'm continuing to work on, is perfectionism. And really the root cause of perfectionism is enough. It's knowing when is what I've done enough, because at the end of the day, what is perfection? Does it even exist? And so when you do something, you have to get to a point where you say, I need to let this go. This needs to be enough, whatever that project is, whatever that milestone is, because what we need to do, the only way we're ever going to feel enough is by progressing. And by even just admitting that we are enough. And you said you're both in the clinical world. Well, whether you're still leaders. I mean, whatever you do, you're a leader. So we're always role modeling behavior for other people around us, whether it's strangers, whether it's patients in your case, whether it is employees, whoever it is, we're always role models. And so to me, the biggest thing that you can do, and the way that you can honor yourself as well as others, is by behaving in a way that is enough and accepting yourself. Because at the end of the day, all that life is just a journey of acceptance.
I absolutely love that. First of all, thank you so much for supporting my book and the movement. So for our listeners, she has the I Am Enough movement card. She was holding it. That's just amazing. I absolutely love it. And it's so funny because you touched on a lot of stuff that's in my book and that I talk about with my own patients, because I actually use the cards with my patients as like visual coping skill. So in my book, I talk about writing that on your mirror with lipstick, which is so funny. Yep. And I totally just blew my mind, like the other thing that you just talked about. And I was like, yes, that's what it is. It's, Brene Brown. So yes. Her quote, and it's actually hanging on top of above my bed, and it's in my book, and it's this: no matter how much I get done or is left undone, at the end of the day, I am enough. And the one thing that I talk about in my book, and I actually have a video training on this, is 5 mindset blocks that keep us stuck. And one of it is the superhero mindset, which is basically the perfectionist mindset, right? So I'm the exact same way. And if I don't get the things done on my to-do list at the end of the day, I just feel stressed out, and I'm like this and that. And so every night before I go to bed, I look at this quote that's above my bed, and I just kind of like take a deep breath and say, oh, well, it's going to be there tomorrow, and I'm still enough. So I love that you kind of like, you just pulled a lot of stuff out of the book, and like you kind of read my mind as to what I do, through my speaking and all of that stuff. So you're like,
I just thought of something. Okay, so I don't know. Do you guys keep a gratitude journal?
I do.
Okay. So I've been keeping a gratitude journal for 20 years, and I love it because at the end of every day, I write 5 things. Now, some days, let's face it, some days it's 40, it's amazing, and I literally stop myself because I could just keep going on and on. And I just say, guess what? I'm really grateful today. How wonderful. And then other days, it's just the sun was shining and where it was raining.
I got out of bed.
Indoors. Yeah, I got out of bed. It was raining. I was indoors. I drank water. It's just really, but it matters because there's always something to be grateful for. Even if we think it's small, it's not. Because just the fact that we are writing down, whether it's on your laptop or whether it's with a pen and paper, it doesn't matter. The fact that we are recognizing that there is something to be grateful for, that I breathe today. I mean, it doesn't matter, but I was just thinking, I love what you said, because I'm almost thinking maybe I'm going to make it like a gratitude and enough journal from now on. Because maybe it's just like a way, like I'm grateful for this, but I felt like I was enough today. I'm going to do that tonight.
I love that. And you're speaking my language, and Stacey will totally agree with you. I am like the coping skills guru. And step 3 of my book is called Grounding Yourself. And so what you're talking about right now is a part of grounding yourself. And so like doing a morning routine and an evening routine to ground yourself even when you have a stressful day. Like today, I've had 7 patients back to back. I had an interview that I did myself, and then I'm doing the podcast tonight, and then I have a call after this. Like, it's crazy. I know that tonight before I go to bed, I need to ground myself by reading my devotions and writing in my journal. And so I love that you're talking about this, because there's so many grounding skills out there, physical, soothing, mental grounding skills. And those are the things that we have to do and want to do every single day in order for us to continue to believe that we're enough. And on the days, like you said, where we don't feel like we're enough, we can simply say, you know what? I got out of bed this morning. Yep. I'm enough.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love you guys are both role modeling, addressing perfectionism in the moment, right? You're saying, I am enough. I did this. It's okay that I didn't get to everything on my to-do list. It's okay that I'm grateful for the sun shining as opposed to these 10 things that I want on my list, right? You are demonstrating being proud about what you have done, and you are like combating perfectionism in that, and so that you can feel like enough. And I exactly, Julie, what you said earlier, that we are best leaders by role modeling the behavior in us, and other people naturally pick up, get inspired, and learn from. And here you two ladies are doing that.
Thank you. Beautiful. Well, I just thought of something else, Stacey, while you were talking. So it's interesting. It's all about, as I mentioned, life is a journey of acceptance. So last night I was meeting a friend for dinner, and we both agreed that it would be on Tuesday. We made this plan on Monday. And I took it to mean the next day. He took it to mean a week from the next day. And I'm literally in the restaurant. Now, fortunately, thank goodness, the restaurant was only a 30-minute walk for me, so it was no big deal. But so I'm in the restaurant. 7 minutes after we're supposed to meet, the restaurant was actually empty. So everyone's looking at me as if I've been stood up. It was kind of embarrassing. It was really funny, but embarrassing. Like, they were gossiping about it and looking at me, are you sure you're okay? And I thought, I'm really okay. This is not a date anyway, but anyway. And so 7 minutes after, I was like, do I wait till 15 minutes after? Is this impatient? So it's actually it's a colleague, I should say. So it's a new friend. And so I just wrote in the text, oh, just to let you know, I'm sitting at the table whenever you're ready. And he wrote back and said, oh my goodness, I'm an hour away. I thought it was next week. And so I ended up leaving. And, you know, it was interesting because I had a very good attitude about it. I mean, maybe I would have had a different attitude if it was a date, honestly. But, I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's probably true. But, you know, in this case, I just thought, well, you know, in life, you just have to roll with it. You just have to be flexible, and whatever happens, it was an honest mistake. It wasn't a big deal. For me, it was a lesson that, okay, next time I'll make sure I put the date of the week in with everyone. And even if they think I'm silly, maybe an hour before, I'll just, I mean, this was so darn close, I really didn't mind, and it was gorgeous out. So I thought, well, you know, it was an excuse to get outside anyway, because I was tucked into work all day. But, you know, it was interesting. It really didn't bother me. I just thought, oh, well, that was kind of funny, because I'm going to see those people in the restaurant next week, and they're going to give me a look because they'll remember me because I was the only one in the restaurant. And for 15 minutes, every single person in the restaurant came up to me. So they're going to remember me next week. But anyway, but that was just my point of saying we need to be really flexible, because things happen in life. That was really minor. But, you know, when something bigger happens, as it will to us from time to time, the best thing that we could do is just say, you know what, I'm breathing, or I'm still a good person. I mean, let's face it, don't we all make mistakes with work in particular? That can be very stressful. And you send an email to the wrong person, or, you know, whatever it may be, like time. I have a lot of time zone issues. You know, especially when I'm speaking to people from Singapore, I mean, it's a 12-hour dip. I mean, when it's a long time zone, inevitably there are always issues. But it's really, you know, and things can be very stressful. You can have very stressful mistakes, but it's realizing that no matter what I did, I'm alive. I did not die. I did not hurt them. We will work this out together. Let's all calm down, and let's figure out how can we prevent this miscommunication from happening next time.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's kind of two things that stick out to me about that story is that one, how powerful mindset is, right? When we depersonalize a situation and that whatever happens to us isn't a function of us or says something about us, but is the other person or a misunderstanding or a miscommunication, how much better it can make us feel. And so this is a really good um, indication of that. And also I think there's a coping strategy in there on how to approach seemingly when you aren't perfect or when you seemingly fail, right? It's not a fail if you can pull out a teaching point or a lesson point in the future. And so you're saying, okay, this happened and I learned maybe next time I want to check in an hour earlier. Maybe I want to do this, right? There's all these things that we can learn, and it helps us approach the natural failures that occur in life without it damaging our sense of self. So that's almost a blessing in disguise for that to have happened. So.
To the point about failure, so I'm a very positive person, and that word I call it the F word. So it's just a word for me that's like, it's just it makes me uncomfortable because of the negative connotation. So for me personally, I like to say it's trial. Like, you know, people say fail, like with entrepreneurs, that they're failing, and then once they have a failure, they go back and do it. I just say it's just trying.
Yeah.
It's trying everything that you want. I know my favorite quote in the world is there was a man named Norman Vaughn, and he was on General Scott's original expedition to the South Pole. They discovered the South Pole. And General Scott named a mountain after him. And the man wanted to go to this mountain for a very long time. He'd never been. And so on his 84th birthday, he tried to go, and it took him 4 years to get there. You know, 1 year, every single person on the expedition except for him was in a plane crash, and they all died. I mean, it was really tragic, horrific things that happened. And so finally, after 4 years of trying, he completely ran out of money. He had a prosthetic leg, so he had one leg. And he found two people, a guide and a videographer, that just really embraced his story and him and said, you know what, we're going to help you get up this mountain for free. And so he and his wife went up this mountain. I mean, remember, to me, this is such an incredible story because he had one leg. You can't top that. You just can't. And so I'm sure it was a very slow walk up the mountain, I'm sure, but still he made it at the top, and he said the most beautiful thing. And I saw a documentary on him. It was incredible. And he said, dream big and dare to fail. And like that story just touches my heart. But because I am who I am, and with the F word, so I changed it to dream big and dare to succeed. And I say it to myself almost daily. Really, that's what life is all about. It's you're daring to succeed. It's what can I do to make myself a success? What can I do to make or to help others succeed? And that's how I look at life.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I love it.
That is so awesome. I absolutely love just these interviews where we're all kind of in alignment and being authentic and real and talking about, you know, the different ways that we can all impact the world. Like, you don't have to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to be a speaker or an author or a therapist or anything. Like, every single one of us, our listeners included, have that ability to impact the world. And I just love it. It's awesome. So again, thank you so much for supporting the movement. I appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. Well, you know, there's another thing to your part about impacting the world. So I am very much a giver. That's just, you can probably tell. I mean, that's just who I am. And I love helping people. I think that is my main purpose in this world. I think it's everyone's purpose, but I know it's my purpose. I can't speak for other people. And so to me, I endeavor every day to make a human connection. I'm not talking LinkedIn. I'm talking human or any social media. I'm talking a human connection to really help someone smile. That's my goal every single day, whether it's on the phone, in person, whatever it is. And I know there's a woman that I pass by several times a week. She's homeless, and I've known her for about 3 years now. And for a very long time, I've told her I want to get her off the streets. She, you know, I really want to get her a home. She doesn't want to go through the government route, so I'd have to actually buy her something outright. I financially can't do that right now. So every day when I pass by her, I always say, you know, I feel bad that I can't give you money to do this. And she's told me, you know, you could never give me money again. She said, you give me kindness, and that means more to me than anything. And like, just, she is the sweetest, nicest person. She's genuinely homeless. And it just shows you how, you know, it doesn't matter how much you have in life, you can find kindness and compassion and joy with other people. I know I walked by her a few weeks ago, and it was a very cold day out, and I didn't have gloves on. And it was like 35 degrees. I know you guys in California don't even understand those numbers, but
I'm from Michigan.
Oh, there you go.
I get it.
Okay. And so it was cold, and I, for some reason, wasn't wearing my gloves at that moment. And she literally took time, and she stopped me on the street, and she said, Juliette, where are your gloves? You need to put them on. And I remember I walked away from her, and I literally didn't even want her to see this. I instantly had tears in my eyes, because that touched my heart, that no matter what she's going through, she has that capacity to think about other people. And I thought, you know what, we can all do that. It doesn't matter what happened that day. It doesn't matter what happened that month, that year, whatever it is. We all have those moments. But the greatest thing in the world to lift your own spirits is just to help someone else. There is nothing greater in this world. And helping someone does not necessarily involve money. I mean, it's just helping, smiling at a stranger, holding the door for someone, being kind to someone. I mean, you never know what someone else is going through. You never know what just happened to someone. And that's, I mean, wouldn't you much rather be in life knowing that, wow, I helped someone today, than, oh, I helped myself today? I mean, to me, there's nothing that gives me greater joy than that.
Yeah, I love it. Oh goodness, we could like have this conversation go on forever. And I want to challenge our listeners. I just thought of this because we have our Facebook community group for the Blonde Bombshell podcast. And, you know, our listeners, if you're listening, you can reach out to Juliette and Stacey and me. And I want to challenge our listeners to do something for someone else.
Yep.
The day that you listen to this episode, or within that week that you listen to this episode. And I would love for you to share how you made an impact on someone and share it on our Facebook group. Again, it's just the Blonde Bombshell podcast. Or you can reach out to Juliette, me, or Stacey and share the one thing that you did, or the multiple things that you did the day that you listened to this episode, or within that week. We would love to share it, because Stacey and ours, you know, the reason why we started this podcast together is because we want to share positive things out into the world and encourage our listeners to really go after what they want and to make a difference. So thank you, Juliette, so much for joining us. How can people get in contact with you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. And so that would be the best way. It's just Juliet Herman. So it's Juliet. My last name is Herman, Herman. I also have a website. It's just julietherman.fyi.to. So, you know, feel free to reach out. I would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so we always love to end by asking our guests, what is your favorite mantra or affirmation?
Okay, so I say this to myself almost every day. So I love doing visualization because it's a great way to envision yourself succeeding at whatever task you want to, or whatever goal you have in life. And so to kind of pump myself up before I do it, I always say, I can, I will, I am.
Oh, I love that.
I can, I will, I am. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Juliette. We so appreciate it. And our listeners, we again will have all of her contact information on the show notes. Thank you again for joining us.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Stacey and Megan.
Absolutely, our pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, and so what we like to do at the end of the show, again, be sure to join our Facebook group, the Blonde Bombshell podcast. And also subscribe to the iTunes of our podcast if you're enjoying listening to us. We really want to hear from you. Stacey and I, the podcast launched in September. It's almost our year anniversary, girlfriend.
Can you believe it?
I know. So we want to hear from our listeners. So feel free to reach out to us, message us on Facebook, post in the community group, reach out to us individually. We want to know what you guys like about the podcast, and we want to know maybe what you want to hear more of. If there's topics that you want us to touch on, if there's guests that you want us to have, we want this, you're taking the time to listen to it, and we want to make it sure that it's beneficial for you. So feel free to reach out to us. And we are going to end with our favorite quote, which is this: you are enough, I am enough, we are enough, just as we are in whatever season we're in. And the more we focus and celebrate the strength that we have, the easier it is to accept and release our inner bombshell. So thank you so much for listening, and we will be with you next week.
Bye. Thank you.